All right, let's go over our sessions, stops, and targets now. This is a pretty complex area, and so this may take more than one video. Don't know yet. We'll see. Let's start out right at the top here and go through what each of these mean. Exits, immediate exits, true or false. If disabled, strategy will exit trades on the reversal after the session stopper target is hit. So remember, the session stopper target has to be hit first, and then you can either have this on true where it exits immediately or on false where it waits for the next reversal bar. Pretty simple. All right, so very easy to understand what that's doing. Use session break even. That's if we want to set the session. Now, when we talk about sessions, we're discussing, if we go over to the times tab, one of these sessions. There's session 1, session 2, and session 3. Standard, this will come set up with only one session, but you can set it however you want. That's up to you. Okay, so if you're running 3 sessions, then each of the stops and settings in the session stops and targets are for each individual session. All right, the session break even is if you are, let's say, up X number of ticks, and at that point you want to move it to break even so you can get yourself at least in a break even position. You can do that. Session target is if you're up X number of ticks and you want to stop on the day, you can do that. Session trail is you can trail it up as well, which is really kind of neat. Okay, then the numbers down here, session break even trigger, that's pretty self-explanatory. 30 is for 30 ticks, then we'll move it to break even on the session. That's not per trade. Per trade settings are done under the strategies. So that session break even could be 3 trades. It could be whatever it is. Section exit level, that's the numbers that come on the screen. Session profit ticks per exit level. So if I want, let's say, a 20 tick target for the day, and I'm going to run the profit ticks at 5, and then I'm going to run 4 session exit levels. That's 5 times 4 is 20. It gives me 20 ticks, and you'll see the numbers come up on the screen. 1, 2, 3, 4. However, if I run the session profit ticks on 10 times 4 is 40. Now I'm telling it I want 40 ticks on the day. But I really only want 20, so I can come back in here and set this to 2. Now I'll get session exit level 2, 1 and 2 for 10 ticks each. So let's see how that looks. I'm going to leave it right here for just a minute, and we're going to run our strategy. And we're going to explain exactly how this will work. So strategy started. Let's run it. Now, the first trade here is going to be a loss. I already know that. We've ran this one over and over running our video. So there's my first trade. It's a loss. So I'm going to pause this or slow it down for a minute. Now, I must make up for that loss before the numbers will print. They're not just going to print on winning trades. It takes into every single tick into account that you've won or lost on. So I have to make up a 92 to 11, almost a 20 tick loss. So I've got to, so now if I know that my session exit, I want to find 20 ticks of profits. That's 10 times 2. Now I need to make 40 ticks to stop trading for the day, because I've got to make up the loss of 20, or almost 20, very close. All right, so now watch what happens. Here's my next long. All right, I took a short down here for a loss. Now I'm in a long. Let's see where this goes. Speed this up a little bit. I will not see any numbers. Now I'm already up on this trade, 31.41. I've already hit 51. So remember what I said, we're looking for 20 ticks profit, but it has to make up for this first 20 tick loss. So now I need another 20 ticks to take my session target out. All right, now there's my exit on this trade. I did not hit a session target or a session number yet because I made up for the loss, but I didn't get enough ticks over and above it to give me a number yet. So let's go to the next trade. Now there's my number 1. I got in the next trade. I'm long. That number 1 is my first number. Let's go back to session, stops and targets. Section exit level 2, number 1 means I'm up 10 ticks. So when that number 1 hit, at that point I was up 10 ticks over on the day. That means I made up my loss plus an additional 10 ticks. Let's see if I can get the number 2. There's number 2. Now notice, there's number 2. Let's go back here for a minute. Immediate exits are on false. So I waited for the close of this bar, which shows up at the open of the next bar, but I waited for the close of this bar to exit that trade. Session 2 target hit. I made 20 ticks on the day. I'm done. Now let's see what that same 20 ticks looks like if I just change these numbers a little bit so I understand how this works. I want to have 4 numbers up there, and I want to monitor them by 5 ticks each. 5 times 4 is still 20. The same target, but instead of saying 2 session target, it's going to say 4 session target. I'm monitoring by 5 ticks each. So this is very flexible in how you can work this. Let's go back to the beginning of the day. Start it again. So I'll speed this up a little bit. There's my short. I'm going to have that loss in a minute. Down about 20 ticks. I'm looking now. There's my loss. I'm looking for the same 20 tick target on the day. I'm just using a little bit different number structure. And this gives you a lot of flexibility because you can really dial in the number of ticks you want to take out on a day. When you're back testing, you can use this in the back testing function. All right, there's the first trade long. This one shouldn't do anything except take us out of a trade with a profit. We don't get any numbers yet. Remember, we went through this on the last one. Okay, so there's the first one. Now, because it's set on 5 and 4 instead of 2, instead of 10 and 2, the number 1 actually does come in at the first exit, or right about at that first exit, very close to it. I didn't have to go as high. Then there's a number 2 and there's a number 3. Every time I'm up additional 5, 10, 15 ticks, I'm still looking for another 5. There it is. Number 4, session target, 20 ticks in profits. All right, now it's a little bit confusing and it'll take you a little bit of time to get used to how that works. Okay, but if you just remember to multiply session profit ticks by the exit level, and the exit level will always be your numbers that come up. And it's always the high water mark. It must always be in profits for that to hit. Okay, now your session stops, which are set on true, but I'm using a stop tick of 30. We didn't hit 30, but let's take this to 20 now at that point. And then let's take our MACD stop loss. Just make it 25 just to make sure we hit it. Now watch what happens. Go to 8 o'clock again. Now I'm telling it that I want, not only do I want a session target of 20 ticks, but I'm going to have a session stop of 20 ticks. Now you may not want to do these equal, but you get the idea. All right, now watch what happens. I know that first trade's a loss of 20 ticks. Actually, it's close. It may not hit. Yep, there it is. It did hit. Session stop hit, minus 20 ticks. I will not take any more trades. My criteria was met. So if I keep pushing this forward, notice there's not going to be any more trades taken. That's it. We hit our session stop. Let's go back in here for a minute. Okay, and all of the other things work very similar in that you can use a session trailing stop, and you can set the trail trigger and the trail tick. So if I at 30 ticks I want to trail, let's say by 10 ticks, it'll do that. And let's do this. When I'm up 10 ticks, I want to trail by 20 ticks. I'm going to turn off session stop, and I'm going to leave session target on. That's fine. So let's see what that looks like. Now you may not see anything on the chart, but let's just see what that looks like for a minute. So now we're using a session trailing stop. Okay, let's start running this. I'm going to speed it up, get that first loss out of the way. There it is. So the trailing stop's not going to be in place yet. Not going to be in place yet. We got to make up for the loss first. Remember, now, notice I just got in the second trade. Now I'm starting. Now we've got that trailing stop in place. Although I may not hit here. All right, no, it hit the session target first. So let's go and adjust this a second time. Go back to sessions, stops and targets. So I'm going to set the exit level to 15 instead. Okay, a little bit higher up there so we can see that trailing stop work. Go to start of the day again. Start it again. Let's get out of that first loss real quick, and then we'll have to make that up. Let's get into that second trade. Start to get our numbers out. Now I've got a target of 15 times 5. That's a lot of ticks. Love to have that. Now we're moving up. See if we can get that trailing stop to start working. Just going to move that out of the way. And there we go, guys. So there's your trailing stop. You see it just moved up. It's trailing us all the way up. And I can also set a break even. That's not the break even, but that's okay. And then if I like where I'm at, well, actually it took us out, so we're done on that trade. Okay, actually we're not done. I'm sorry, guys. We're still in that trade at level 9. All right, and if I want to manually take it out, I notice I'm kind of going sideways there. I can do that, but I'll let this thing ride for a minute just so you guys can see it. All right, and there you go, done and out. Okay, so you can use, now remember we had number 15 set, so we haven't hit that 15 yet, but I can come back in here and keep this thing going. Let's see if we get it. There's another trade. This one's short. Sorry, that was actually a long. I said short, but I meant long, so it was a loss. Come in here, we take a short or another long there. We're still going down in the market. Now we get a short finally. I just want to get some of those numbers back so I can watch how these work. Now we just move down the breaks. There you go. And it's not the break even. It's a trailing stop function that just went down with it. All right, I don't have the break even turned on, so that was actually the trailing stop function. All right, that's how it works.